everybody, and welcome along to Silverstone, the home of British motorsport. Welcome to you watching and listening around the world here at Nismo TV. I'm John Hindorf, and we're here for the Nismo GT Academy, for the international side of the GT Academy for 2015. And all of the applicants have been whittled down now to 5. And this afternoon we will whittle them down even further. Qualifying session coming up for a mere 6 minutes around the national circuit here at Silverstone, and then we will have a race. Just 5 of them left now, and they represent Turkey, the USA, Mexico, Australia and North Africa. I'm sitting here behind, or standing here behind race control, which is the other picture that you'll see right in front of us, with the bank of screens, with our clerk of the course and race director Bernard Cottrell sitting with his team to make sure that the absolute rules of motor racing are adhered to throughout everything that's going on here. So no cutting corners, no taking any kind of liberties with the edges of the track, and when we get to the racing, again, the correct regulations must be adhered to. This is real motor racing, because these guys are racing for potentially to be in the 24 Hours of Dubai next January. Well, as I'm here watching the screens out on the circuit at Beckett's is Johnny Palmer. Good afternoon, Johnny.
Good afternoon, John. Yes, a little bit of a feeling that I've drawn the long straw here, because I can actually see quite a bit of the Silverstone National Circuit, which is, I know you're inside and you can see screens of the whole circuit, but it's nice to actually see real asphalt and real cars heading through on the 6 minutes that will be the qualifying session. My view sees the cars come into sight out of Copse Corner. Can't actually see Copse itself, but they'll thunder their way up towards Maggotts Corner, that little left-hand kink before hard braking, and the right-hander at Beckett's. That leads them onto the Wellington Straight. You can see them all the way through there, and then towards the bridge about halfway down Wellington Straight, which leads them back towards the arena section at Brooklands Corner.
And we have now just been handed the names of the 5 drivers. It was 10 this morning. Each of the territories had 2 drivers, and it's been whittled down from grid number 1. Matthew Simmons will represent Australia. He'll be in the number 5 car with the yellow striping. His team leader is Gonzalo Gomez. He's been mentoring the Australian team this week. Off second position and in the qualifying session, with Wolfgang Reip as his mentor, Ryan Lynch from America. Steady progress from Ryan this week. Off grid number 3 from Turkey with the mentor Miguel Faisca is Hussein Dagli. He'll be in the orange car number 6. Off grid 4, the quiet man of the group from North Africa, representing Egypt, the number 2 blue car is Ali Sami, and he's been looked after by Richard Cohen Grandidier this week. And from grid 5, the fiery man of this 5 that are battling away, representing Mexico with Ricardo Sanchez as his mentor, Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, likes to be known as Juan Car, but we're going to shorten that to JC3 because it's much easier. And he is in the number 1 car, so that's easy to remember. It's the green. And we've seen these guys that have been out already, Johnny, and doing some assisted driving around the track that they're about to go on to. But this is real now, and they'll need to get their heads together and get the concentration going.
There is a big difference, isn't there, when you get into the car on your own and you look around and you think, blimey, this is all down to me now. And Silverstone Circuit, from above the track, looks relatively simple. It's essentially 3 straights and 4 corners, if you like, but there's a lot of technical driving required to get that extra tenth that is needed around such a short circuit. And only 6 minutes of qualifying. We worked out that will probably be about 5 laps for each car, and there's no time therefore to get used to the situation. You need to be bang on it from the start. So it'll be interesting, the various different approaches that the drivers take, and I think your good point about the differing personalities of all 5 might actually mean a different approach.
The cars will, in fact I can see here from race control, and if you're watching our screen, up in the top right hand above the blue screen, which is the timing screen, you can see all 5 cars sitting on the grid at the moment. The doors are open on all of them. It's quite a mild day, and not to say muggy actually, and a little bit humid, and they're sitting on the start line. They'll be released from the start line at intervals to get the qualifying session underway. That will of course set the grid, and then we will be off and running later on for a competitive 8-lap race. So this is first of all testing the drivers in terms of putting pressure on them to string some quick laps together and to do it very quickly. And anyone who's ever done that before, whether in gaming or indeed in the real world, the virtual world or the real world, the pressure is put on by yourself at this point, and managing that is absolutely key. The cars are Nissan NISMO 370s with the GT4 body kit on them, but very much, if you're old as I am, remember sort of Group N, which is modified production sort of status. They're running on race-tuned suspension, slightly different brake pads, but with the standard road car calipers. All the safety equipment, of course, has gone in, including a full FIA specification roll cage and fire suppression system. Quite a lot of the interior has been stripped out. There's a full racing seats, and they are running on cut slicks. The cars, and over the years here at the race camp at Silverstone, these cars have been tuned, and the engine is standard, however, so it's mainly the suspension and the brakes, as I say, that have been changed. But these cars have been the workhorse of the training in this early part of the selection period. Whoever goes on from this will go on to the driver development program looked after by RGN Motorsport, Bob and Liz Neville, and along with the rest of the mentors, then focusing in to get these guys up to International C standard as far as their licenses are concerned, which means they've got a very short time indeed after this week to get 10 signatures at various different meetings to get up to International C. And as a C license holder myself, I can tell you that it's taken me a very long time to get to that stage. It's going to be a very, very compressed time period, but the driver development comes not here but afterwards, once the selection has been completed. But one of these 5 then will be taking away the big prize later on today. We're just a few moments now from getting this qualifying underway, and absolutely perfect conditions, Johnny, because there's hardly a breath of wind in the circuit. It was quite sunny this morning, a little overcast, but is absolutely dry right now.
When we first arrived, it was quite gusty out there, and I feared that that might, really affect the qualifying and the racing as well. But that wind has dropped now, I reckon. So particularly when you're here in a single-seater, that definitely affects cars down the tubes, as we say. The run out of Cops Corner down towards Beckett's, but it's going to be less of an issue. No chance of rain. I mean, perfect blue sky, but there is a little bit of cloud here and there.
Which I'm shocked at, frankly, because I washed both my car and Eve's car this morning, which almost is always the portent of thunderstorms, frankly.
Yeah, you did your best to bring some poor weather on, but it's not happened.
No.
Yeah, looking over towards Luffield from my position at Beckett's, grand sky above us, there is that low-lying cloud, so temperature not massively high, but again, that could be a helping factor for these drivers who need to get into the groove, as you've been saying, very quickly indeed, in only a 6-minute session.
The interest to me is the fact that the guys are effectively going to be out on single car qualifying. They shouldn't really be getting mixed up with their competitors, because they will be started at slight intervals to get them off the grid. This is probably one of the few times in their motor racing career that will be the case, and they've got to make the best use of it. They can't be messing about, weaving around, trying to get the tyres up to temp. It's got to be attack from the first moment that they get off the line. They've got to judge the grip, got to get the tyres up to temperature and pressures as quickly as possible. It should be that their best lap should be, I would think, lap 3 or 4. That would be, to me, the optimum. Push too hard to start with and you could ruin your confidence, not go quick enough, and you might start getting hassle from the guy behind. So there's a lot to think about here, Johnny.
There is, but I almost wonder whether the gaming mentality lends itself quite well to that, because you don't mess about on a computer game zigzagging and trying to get heat into the tyres. You're just on it as soon as the computer says so. But the difficulty is that if it doesn't quite go right for the first couple of laps, there's no reset button here. You don't restart the game. You have to carry on, and it's about, like you were saying, not letting the first couple of bad laps affect you. Make sure the last couple count, and it's compartmentalising things to, like the good sports people do. Put it out of your mind. Do really well this time.
The other thing, of course, is the added pressure by the amount of TV cameras are here, because down through the years, the Nissan GT Academy has been making television shows for all of the different territories that the contestants come from, the graduates come from, and others. And there are different crews from each of the 5 territories that are here, plus an overall crew. There's little drones flying around, there's Jimmy Jibs on the back of vehicles. This is a big production, and that itself lends a bit of pressure as well, Johnny.
I think when you're wandering around the pit lane and you have lenses focusing at you, it's like one of those big paparazzi parties, and you have to kind of pretend they're not there and go about your business as naturally as possible. It's a good window into how things might go if you win a competition like this, because there is massive attention clearly on the eventual winner. But it is another thing that racing drivers have to cope with, and be ignorant, I suppose, but also try and be professional too. There's ignorance and professionalism mixed together.
I think you're right. It's about compartmentalising things and getting things in focus. If you are just joining us, welcome along to Nismo TV. It's John Hindhaugh and Johnny Palmer from Radio Show Limited, the Sports Car Network, Endurance Network, and Johnny and I have, down the years, commentated on a number of Nissan GT Academy graduates right up to and including Le Mans, Johnny, haven't we?
Oh yeah, I mean, Luca Thordeneth, we've watched him blossom. Jan Mardenborough's now in GP3, and it's been fascinating to watch. I was first introduced to Jan in 2012 at the Nürburgring, because he was part of the British GT Championship then, and they had a guest round there, and thoroughly nice chap. It was obviously brand new to it, and having to kind of cope with meeting lots of new people, all the attention, but also going quickly as well. And it's a great hotbed of talent, and a wonderful way of trying to find new talent as well. And it has worked year in, year out. We've got real stars coming through. Gaetan Palatu.
Yes. Another little star, absolutely.
Yeah, indeed, and I saw him at Thruxton in a Ginetta going very strongly indeed earlier on in the year.
I think after one or two people raised eyebrows at it, I have to say, not us at RadioLeMans.com, it's something that we followed right from the very beginning. I remember standing on a very gusty, windy, cold, rainy bankside on the Stowe circuit in the very first days of the very first race camp with Bob Neville, funny enough, and all the way through we've sort of looked at every one of them. But a lot of people raised their eyebrows. I think now, finally, it has been recognised as another way of finding talent, a different way from people coming up through karting and the junior formula. And let's be honest, from having either wealthy backers or wealthy parents, there's no such requirement here. It is done on talent and the decisions of the mentors as to who they feel are making the most of the opportunity. So this is a huge opportunity, of course, for all 5 of these drivers. If you are just joining us here on Nismo TV, let me run through what you're about to see. We have a very quick fire qualifying session of 6 minutes on the clock. The cars, the 5 Nismo 370Zs, are sitting on the starting grid in front of the national pits here at Silverstone. The slight delay from me saying Z was because I've just come back from the States where I was talking about them in Continental Tires Sports Car Challenges 370Z, of course, ZZ. The order in which they fire off for their qualifying session will be as follows. Matthew Simmons, the yellow number 5 car, will lead off first. He is sitting on what effectively is pole position on the starting grid at the moment. Both doors on that 370 still open. In fact, pretty much all of them are. I think it's just the one right at the very back of Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, who has got just the driver's door open. Still the last moments of filming are being done, just adding more pressure. So it'll be Matthew Simmons who leads off for Australia. Matthew, we've had a chat with their mentors and the guys who've been watching over them this week. Very much a steady improver, and has probably made the biggest improvement in the time he's been here at Silverstone. A variety of different challenges have been laid before the graduates this year, including some driving, but this is the biggest driving challenge they've had so far. So Matty Simmons off first then. Second will be Ryan Lynch, affectionately known here as Captain America for his magnificent mane and teeth. He is a real poster boy for American motorsport. He's from the US, as I say, in the number 7 car, which is the red accoutrements, red being the original racing colour of the United States of America, going way back, of course. That car just gridded up slightly behind and to the right of Matty Simmons on the grid at the moment. Directly behind Matty Simmons, released in 3rd position, representing Turkey, will be Hussein Dagli. Another steady improver this week, has taken instruction well from what we've heard. We saw them, as I say, very briefly this morning, just doing some assisted laps or accompanied laps around the circuit they're about to go out on. So that's from 3rd, with the blue decals on the 370. In 4th position is the quiet man of the group. Very thoughtful. We just saw him standing on the pit wall actually, whilst the final selection was being made. Lost in his own thoughts. Ali Sami, representing Egypt, the North African territory. He's in the number 2 car, which has the blue decals on it, as I mentioned. Difficult to read, that young man. He was just watching, taking everything in when we saw him on the pit wall, 45 minutes or so ago, I suppose, before he knew that he was going to be one of the last 5. And off the back, from Mexico, representing Mexico, Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, the number 1 car with the Mexican green colours on it. Which Juan Carlos will we get today? On his day, he could be very quick indeed. He can also be very spectacular. He's also described as sometimes a little fiery. Not always good taking instruction. Will we get the right Juan Carlos today? Will he be able to focus in on the job in hand? The grid has started to clear. I can see that the filming truck with the Jimmy Jib on the back is moving away. It's going to be so much, isn't it, Johnny, about those different temperaments that I've talked about. And there's no help now from the mentors. These guys have now been strapped in those cars for a good 15-20 minutes, perhaps even more. And anybody who's ever sat in an assembly area, you've got your helmet on, you've got your hands device on. It's quite claustrophobic, even a saloon car, and you are left entirely with your own thoughts.
It's the old nature-nurture argument, isn't it? You know, you can be taught as far as possible, but then there is always a moment where you're pushed into the abyss on your own. And yeah, temperament is very much a deciding factor at these events, because they are so quick fire. Because, you know, in motor racing career, when you're talking about professionals, they can almost afford to have an off weekend. You can't even have an off minute during this session, because it's very, very short indeed. And the bad bits will then hopefully immediately lead into the good bits, but there can be no overlap. And yeah, it's not surprising that the guys that we had heard about this morning, being the consistent risers, are going to start from 1st and 2nd on the grid. Matthew Simmons and Ryan Lynch. We'd heard that Hussein Dagli, a little bit inconsistent, fabulous in Caterhams, but then he had a go in an LMP3 car and was kind of nowhere. So he has the capability, but he needs to make it count and be more consistent.
Also suggests to me that he's not happy when the car's not moving around underneath him.
Yes.
You know, a bit more downforce,
Yes.
a bit more planted. Wants to maybe just doesn't attack the corners quite enough. It's the odd thing in a downforce car. You've got to actually drive faster to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going slowly, it doesn't work.
Correct.
And it's that bizarre thing of drive faster and you'll get round the corner. No, I'm driving as fast as I dare and I'm not getting round the corner. It's that leap of faith, isn't it?
And when you think this is a kind of Group N spec car, as you were saying, then this may move around and might suit David.
Might suit him, yeah.
From third position. Ali Sami, very difficult to know how he's going to go because he gives nothing away. Cards clamped to his chest. And Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, well, aggressive, but also pretty quick at times. Interesting mix.
He's got something the advantage for Juan Carlos is, if it is an advantage, is he's off the back of the grid coming.
True.
So he's got something to aim for. My worry would be, speaking to the mentors, that he might try too hard to catch the guy in front and in his head think he's racing them. It's always great having something to aim for. He's not racing, but this is qualifying. And if he pushes too hard, he could end up facing the wrong direction. On the B side of that might be just the motivation that he needs to have the focus that sometimes, clearly, from what we've heard this morning, has been lacking.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, they're released at intervals, but you better hope that there's no incidents ahead of you.
It's a fair point as well.
That's the advantage, obviously, that Simmons has, is that he has cleared track, at least on the opening lap. And, we'll have a chance with that, with no cars around him, really, to react to any incidents when he comes round for the second time.
The braking area right in front of you as they turn off the main Grand Prix circuit and make the right-hand turn onto what is now the Wellington Straight. Very tricky and very important to get the turn-in and the application of power on that cut-through section absolutely spot on, because it's quite a long run down the Wellington Straight, and you're going to be able to see that. And we saw this morning, didn't we, one or two people not exactly making friends with apices of the corners.
Yes, rather, gaping holes, you could say, between car and apex, and it is such a crucial slingshot onto the Wellington Straight down towards the complex and the arena section towards the end of the lap. And the problem is partly as well entry, because you're having to turn left first of all, brake, and then turn right through almost a double apex right-hander.
It is indeed, yeah.
You can run out wide. Some people choose not to. There's a wide approach and then a tighter exit, or you can go tighter on the entry and then run out quite wide. But you made a good point earlier on about track limits, which will be closely observed as well.
Yes, absolutely right. Johnny, I can tell you that the car doors are being closed now on the grid, and Matthew Simmons, in fact, has got both doors closed. He's the first car that goes off. He'll be representing Australia in this run-off then, the qualifying for the International GT Academy, the Nissan GT Academy for 2015. And the grid has now been cleared. The last of the cameras taken away. The engines have been fired up on the Nissan 370s, which is sitting on the grid. And do you know what? I can feel the tension from here. I'm almost nervous for each of these 5 graduates who are about to take part in the most important qualifying session of their lives to date. And it could be the start of a big career for any one of these 5 drivers. And you're live with us on Nismo TV. I'm John Hindhaugh, Johnny Palmer at Beckett's. As the yellow car rolls, this is the number 5 car of Matthew Simmons. He's off the grid, and 5 seconds later, from the second place on the grid is the number 7 of Ryan Lynch for the States. 3 is rolling now. That's Hussein Dagli for Turkey, the number 6 with the orange. Then the number 4, Ali Sami for Egypt, the North African territory. And finally, from Mexico, Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez. They are all rolling. And Johnny Palmer, you should be able to see Matt Simmons coming towards you now.
I can, with Ryan Lynch, and very tentative run towards the first corner, making sure that temperature is building in those tyres and in the brakes as well. Braking relatively heavily, certainly Chavez hot into Maggots and Beckett's, but doesn't push out too wide, and almost he looks the most aggressive coming into this sequence of corners. Down the Wellington Straight they go, lots of weaving now taking place along what used to be the National Straight, underneath the bridge towards Brooklands, and brake lights coming on nice and early again for the brake temperature.
I'm very surprised that Matt Simmons didn't take off like a scolded cat there. He rather let Ryan Lynch get a little bit close to him. They've sort of got their spacing back again as we'll wait for them. They're starting their first flying lap, of course, as they come round this time, and these are the ones that are going to count. Across the line then, the cars have just gone through, and Johnny Palmer will get to see them on their first flying lap, with Matt Simmons in the yellow number 5 coming towards him now.
Much more like a race pace here, qualifying pace, as they head over the rise, then out of Copse Corner, and then the car launches forward on its haunches almost, and the nose dips as the car then takes the right-hander at Beckett's. A slower run definitely for Ryan Lynch, so Simmons is quicker on this lap, I'd say. Purely visually, I would say that the Australian a little bit quicker than the American. Then the third of the cars is the orange colours for Turkish Hussein Daghli in the number 6 machine. Ali Sami safely through, and if anything being caught by Chavez, so I reckon Simmons could be quick on this lap, so too the number 1 car.
It's Ali Sami who's got the best of the sector times of 40.9, well ahead of the opposition at the moment, although the fastest speed was for Turkey as they come round to complete their first flying lap, 118 and a half. 110.1 then for Australia, Matty Simmons as he goes through. 109 for Turkey, leads it. And then North Africa goes through, 108.022. It's North Africa from Turkey, from Mexico, from USA, from Australia in terms of their lap times. So Ali Sami, the quiet man in the blue number 2, has the best lap so far, and that's a cracker.
Back to Maggots and Beckett's they come. Sammy looking on it again, I would say, just purely the body language of the car, but Matthew Simmons maybe a bit quicker on this lap. You've got the splits with you, but the 7 car of Ryan Lynch heading through Beckett's as well, again drifting away from the yellow car out front, so can't quite keep with the pace of Matthew Simmons.
Yeah, Matthew 41.3 on the split this time around. That's not quick enough. North Africa a bit slow, 41.0. 40.6 from the USA, so watch for a quick time here from Ryan Lynch. Was he just pacing himself through there? 118 and a half on the speed trap is quick from both Turkey and Mexico. They're all keeping it on the island at the moment, and we've only got 2.5 minutes left, less in fact, as through goes the USA. 107.9, and the USA heads it for the moment at least. There's no change for Australia. They've not improved. 108.5, yes they have, but it's only good enough for 4th at the moment. What about North Africa? The first time for Ali Sami then. The Egyptian driver is still his best. He did not improve that time around. So that was maybe a little bit of tactics there from Ryan Lynch, just dropping away to give himself a bit of space, Johnny.
Yeah, I hadn't read that exactly right, to be fair. So the 7 car was getting quicker and is quickest at the moment. What can Hussein Daghli do not too far away from the red car? He is in the orange number 6, the Turkish driver, and then heading back underneath the bridge go the last 2. Ali Sami, who was quickest after the first lot of laps, but has dropped to second fastest now, has a 1/10 of a second, just over that, to try and find on Ryan Lynch.
And the Australian Matthew Simmons has his best split on a 41.3, but really you need to be down in the 40s and somewhere around 118.5 miles an hour through the speed trap, and nobody's anywhere near that at the moment as he comes through to complete his 3rd lap. A 108.5, 4.1 is his fastest, but still only good enough for 4th position. Mexico, Juan Carlos, he is done his fastest lap as well, a 108.6, but it hasn't moved him up from 5th, and indeed no one else has improved, so it's still Ryan Lynch in the number 7 for USA. Go USA, 107.9, still the time to beat. Only, I think, this lap. This is the last chance, Johnny.
Matthew Simmons did improve last time around, but didn't improve his position. Still 4th fastest with a 108.5, and he's already out of Beckett's now and down the Wellington Straight underneath the bridge back towards the end of the lap. And again, nothing amazing through the first sector from all 5 cars. No. So Ryan Lynch could well have this in the bag, you know, for a good starting position for the race.
Fastest speed that lap around, 118.5, Mexico, but not a great lap, split time, 41.0, and a 40.8 though from USA. Not his best, but this could be an improvement. It's a 108.429 for Matt Simmons, the Australian. It's his best, but it'll leave him in. Oh, now he got through and didn't see the checkered flag, so he's got one more lap. I think he's got one more lap, the Australian. Now, whether he'll be allowed to complete that as everyone else goes through, Turkey gets their best lap, Australia and Mexico, all with their best lap that time in third, fourth and fifth position. No improvement for either Egypt in the shape of Ali Sami or Ryan Lynch for the USA. Is Matt Simmons still on it?
It looks to be, but to be honest, the top three cars still seem to be on it. Ali Sami's well and truly backed off in the blue car.
I'm told by our race control that neither of the first two got the checkered flag, so they will get this lap. So that will still be the number 7 and Matt Simmons. So still an opportunity for USA and for Matt Simmons. So Ryan and Matt still out there at the moment, and Australia has not done a decent lap time this time around. Let's see split time this time around. I don't think he's going to improve, you know. I think it's going to be that second flyer from the USA that's going to take this, Johnny.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time for Ryan Lynch to get to the boil, with Ali Sami actually topping the times at the end of the first lap, but Ryan Lynch was actually making a bit of room for himself and dropping back almost on that first lap, then pushed for the second one, and obviously the tyres were nicely up to temperature by that point, and he could really push on and know the car would react. The only sub 1 minute 8 lap in the end for Team USA, a 107.9, so over a tenth of a second clear of Ali Sami in the number 2 car, and then Hussein Dagley finished in third fastest time. Matthew Simmons was fourth fastest, and then the Mexican Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, who will start from 5th position in the race.
Pretty impressive from Ryan Lynch there. Knew exactly what he wanted to do. I wonder, on that first warm-up lap, the relatively easy getaway by Matthew Simmons, or was that Ryan Lynch pushing on the warm-up lap just to get the heat into the tyres and then feeling the grip on his first flying lap? Whatever the tactics were, it worked perfectly for the American.
Absolutely, yeah, and these are fine margins, as we keep saying, but he obviously had a game plan, the Captain America, as he's called, the poster boy, and it has worked a treat, hasn't it? He has been a steady improver, a steady riser, and he's timed that to perfection to be the quickest in qualifying. Question is now, what's the game plan for the 8-lap race a little bit later on today? I still don't think Matthew Simmons has shown all his cards. He'll start from 4th.
Well, actually, I'm just being told that the grid is predetermined.
Beg your pardon.
Because it was set from the stock car event last night that was down at Northampton Arena. But what that has done is given us a reasonable idea of who it can be quickest. And this is very interesting indeed, that the guy who won last night and therefore gets the pole, Australia, only 4th quickest. He's going to have to find some speed, is Matt Simmons. And what about Ali Sami in 2nd then, in terms of the times we've just seen, off-grid 4. You've got to think a good start from him, and it's got to be between him and Ryan Lynch if the times are anything to go by. But only, I mean, the top 3 actually only separated by a couple of tenths.
Yes.
Australia and Mexico in the shape of Matt Simmons and Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, J3C, as I'm going to call him, JC cubed. Those guys, their time's just a little bit off. Now, the question is, Johnny, have they learned anything from that?
I think you're always learning, and yes, when they're in real competition on their own in the cars, it's great to get 4 laps under your belt, 5 in the case of Matthew Simmons. He did manage to get that extra lap. That's the benefit of starting from grid number 1 for qualifying, and indeed for later on. Is it going to be the same grid positions then as we had for this?
Exactly so.
Yes. So
exactly so.
Yeah, so Matthew Simmons, who was 4th fastest in qualifying, will actually still start from pole.
Yes.
And could, well, again, we're talking slim margins, but could actually hold Ryan Lynch up behind him.
Yeah, and don't forget, it's not always been the winner of the race who has been selected. It will still come down to the mentors talking about who is the most worthy to go through, and part of that thought process will be what we've just seen, that qualifying, how the guys react under the pressure of a qualifying situation. I'm looking into race control at the moment, and there doesn't seem to be any issues with any of the drivers in terms of track limits or anything like that. In fact, I've had the thumbs up from inside of race control, so those times will stand for at least a reference purposes. So let's just run through that again. It was fastest then for Ryan Lynch from second on the grid. He will start in that number 7 car, played the tactics very well, chased up to the back of Matt Simmons, who was ahead of him, and then dropped away just a little bit to give himself room to qualify, set a qualifying time, or at least a time at least of 107.905 from the man who was out 4th from the grid, representing North Africa from Egypt, Ali Sami, in the number 2 car, the blue car, and he did a 108.022. 108.1, so just another further 10th behind for our Turkish graduate of the Nissan GT Academy for 2015, Hussein Dagli, in the 6 car, the orange car. Then a little bit further back, it's 3/10 further back, and I think Matt Simmons will be disappointed with that. The Australian driver in the number 5 yellow car, and then just about a 10th or so, 10th and a half behind him is the green car, the number 1 car of Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez. Not sure what we read from all of that, Johnny, if I'm honest, other than to say that Ryan Lynch, who's off the front row, if he gets a good run down into the first corner, he could, with that lappery and with the consistency, he was peppering the 108.97, 108.0, 108.1 area. In fact, his last lap was a 108.1. So if he could do that and be consistent, he could drive away from this field here.
Yeah, that is certainly possible. I'm interested in, very similar to a mutual friend of yours and mine, about the average lap times though as well, and you know, how consistent were they through the session? Yes, okay, Ryan Lynch, Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez, Hussein Dagli and Ali Sami only got 4 laps. How were they when they weren't on their quickest lap? Because I noticed the difference for Ali Sami being quite considerable on his final lap. He did a 109.2, which is 1.2 seconds slower than his best. The others were relatively close actually to their quick times, but that will be considered as well, how they perform through the session.
Yes, exactly.
And
so
not just their best lap.
It is all about continuous assessment here on the Nissan GT Academy. It always has been. We are looking for a career racing driver here. Let's not forget, it's not just about a one-lapper. That's very true, as Johnny Palmer has just mentioned. If you're just joining us on Nismo TV, the qualifying runs, as it were, are finished. We've had 6 minutes, 4 or 5 laps around the national circuit here at Silverstone in the centre of England, where the weather is playing ball today. It's warm, it's relatively still, it's a little bit humid, it'll be a little bit uncomfortable in those front engine GT cars there. The Nismo 370Zs with the full roll cages, full safety equipment and fire suppression. Interiors are stripped out, pretty much a Group N sort of spec, not quite GT4, but with a change of suspension package and brake pad material and some nice racing rubber strapped onto them as well. The car's looking very well balanced, as the 370 is a fine piece of equipment, as any of you who are watching or listening to the Continental Tires Sports Car Challenge from Road America at the weekend, which we were broadcasting on IMSA Radio, will know that Nick Hamann, in fact, a graduate of the Nissan GT Academy, up in the top 3, running very consistently. Both of the Nissans this year have been real contenders at the sharp end of the field, very quick in a straight line. That 6-cylinder engine screaming as it was driving up the hill and past us in our company booth at the start-finish line of Road America. And this is what these guys are shooting for, a chance for a professional racing career with, at the start at least of their career, a potential for a 24-hour race drive in Dubai for the Hankook 24 Hours in January of next year, which is an event that we have been involved in for quite some time now. So just a few minutes before things get underway here. Darren Cox has just walked in with me. Just give me a second. I'll do it this way so that we don't have to mess anything up. Step Step towards me. No, my hair's consistently messed up. Interesting how that's come through. Good qualifying there by Ryan Lynch from the US. He's still going to start from second position. This is your brainchild, Darren, and once again we're looking at 5 contestants, 5 graduates from slightly further afield in the world that we first started this, but such is the growth of Nissan GT Academy.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the names on the scoreboard, if you like. You know, yes, okay, America's got obviously a lot of history of fantastic motor racing and great drivers, but you know, second and third, North Africa and Turkey, you know, within a tenth of that time, and then you know, Mexico. Obviously, we've got you know, the winner, you know, from last year. Fantastic coverage in Mexico, honestly, of GT Academy, of you know, Ricardo, you know, from last year. It's been brilliant. What we really love is the new markets coming in. You know, the enthusiasm. We've got journalists from North Africa, from Turkey, from Mexico, and the enthusiasm from these guys for this event is just amazing. You know, a lot of people here, just looking down at some of the names on there, you know, Kermit, one of our team leaders, been here since the beginning. Smithy's around somewhere, you know, been here since the beginning, and you know, we've been doing it for 8 years. But you bring new markets in, and they're so enthusiastic about it. It's fantastic to see, and it, you know, keeps us all motivated to keep doing it.
And by no means exactly the same challenges year on year. It's been a little bit different this year from years in the past, and these guys are really feeling their way as far as the driving is concerned. But the driver development, which comes next, that has been honed, I would say, almost to perfection.
Well, we always keep improving on both sides, on the, you know, the this week's race camp, but also the driver development program. I think we took some big steps forward a couple of years ago with that. You know, honestly, if I think back what we did with Lucas now on the driver development, and we compare what these guys now get, I mean, Lucas probably would love to get what these guys get in terms of you know, the sim stuff, the mental side of things, the fitness, you know, the mentoring that they get. Really a step forward. But you know, we look at last year. We had a Thai winner and an Indian winner now racing in Canada. I think the last race out, yeah, in the Micro Cup, first and second in quali, first and second in both races. So you know, it's not just the headlines of Ricardo from Mexico winning, or you know, Wolfie racing in Japan, or you know, Yan in GP3, but around the world, countries. This is the most important thing for me. Countries that haven't got any access to motor racing, we're bringing people closer to motor racing and promoting motor racing in those markets that, even if you started now with kart tracks and you know, the facilities that we've got here in the UK, you wouldn't find racing drivers for years and years and years. You know, we're shortcutting that, and we make TV programmes about it and tell people about motor racing. Not a bad thing. Not
a bad thing at all, and what's more, it doesn't make motor racing look easy either, because it's warts and all. People make mistakes, and whilst this is now, as I was saying earlier, I think, Darren, an absolutely legitimate way to get into motorsport, it's not an easy way to get into motorsport. You're competing right from the very beginning. What it doesn't rely on is you having a lot of backing or a rich family.
I think one of the interesting things now is the commitment that these guys are making. I mean, I've heard some of the guys, I think it was the guy from Australia, has been, you know, working towards this in inverted commas for years, and you know, as well the US guys as well. So there's a huge amount of effort that goes in now to this, to be the best gamer and then get yourself ready. I saw some of the fitness challenges. These guys are getting fitter and fitter by the year. You know, we've had some of the drivers that are still driving with us and weren't fit when they joined, and are now very fit racing drivers. But these guys now are really fit. What's really interesting, everyone's expecting, what I've been hearing is the Australian driver to be the standout, and we just saw there, I think he was fourth as time and screen's now gone down.
Yeah.
What Smithy, who's around somewhere, who's been involved since the beginning, has always said it's about progression during the week.
Yes.
It's not about where you are at the beginning, where you are at the end, but where you've come from that journey. And that means this race, the winner of this race doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win their GT Academy. Now, in the past, I think all the time it's been the winner of the race.
But we've always said that it's not automatic.
No, and there's always massive debates behind the scenes on you know, who should.
That's the bit we can't show.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and you know, but at the end of the day, everyone involved in this is a racer, and therefore, you know, they you know, want the guy that goes fastest to win. But you know, we've had a qualifying session obviously yesterday. The grid's based on the stock cars yesterday, which had some interesting stuff in there. I think Rick was really clever with his pit stop strategy. Got the Australians up the front there, so we might see a bit of, especially looking at those lap times, we might see a bit of progression through the field. John, I've heard you commentating on the final races here. I remember one in the wet where there was, I think, 6 or 7 cars, where they were sliding around all over the place. I can't remember which year that was now, but these races have been fantastic.
It was Wolfie's year, I think.
It was Wolfie's year, and okay, we're bone dry out there, and again mixing up. We're on a different circuit. We're on the national circuit. I think that year was international, or whatever they're calling it now. Today at Silverstone, and we'll see something different. I think going into the first corner could be interesting, but I think coming into Brooklands probably is going to be where the damage bill goes up a little bit.
This is part of Nissan's GT Academy for 2015. This is the international part. You talked about developing markets. We're seeing some new areas here that I haven't talked about, but that's literally only scratching the surface. Interest coming from literally territory upon territory around the world, and we've got more of this to come next week.
Well, basically we've doubled the number of markets involved in GT Academy from last year to this year, which is crazy really, and we've launched GT Academy Asia, which has 5 markets. We're really proud to have at last Japan involved in that, so we'll have 6 Japanese drivers come over, as well as the Indians and the Thais for their second year. So we're growing, but also those that have done it before want to come back. It was interesting talking to the Indian PR team earlier on last week, and they're saying they've doubled the coverage and the interest of the programme from year on year because they've got a winner. It's not someone from, with respect to Lucas from Spain or
and how important is that? Because we talk about finding these new talents from around the world. It's important for them to have something to hang the hat on, and the TV programming in the individual market does exactly that.
Yeah, and Mexico PR guys have done a fantastic job. Ricardo is a hero in Mexico because of the fantastic job they've done there. He's done a brilliant job in Blancpain. I know they're looking for a long-term programme for him to get him up to the heights of an Ordonez or a Mardenborough. And it's brilliant to see these new markets come in. And of course, in Mexico we have got a sort of a renaissance of motor racing with the Grand Prix going there. The new circuit and a lot of things they're talking about. Doing 24-hour racing apparently, John, I'm hearing. So
who would have thought?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have one of them. So it isn't just about the established markets. I mean, Europe, we're moving from Silverstone to Abu Dhabi for the finals of that one. Again, keeping it fresh, doing things differently. It's the only way you progress. And we've already talking about what we can do for next year.
I haven't had my invitation to Abu Dhabi.
No, nor have I. That's a Nissan Europe event. So they just fancied a bit of sun, I think, in October. So we're mixing up, we're changing things. They'll have a different prize to these guys. These guys get the traditional prize of the Dubai 24 hours, and we've seen from last year, again, as I say, Ricardo racing in Blancpain and doing a good job, but that car's been so unlucky this year, unfortunately, robbed of a great result at Ricard, and Spa really didn't do us any favours with either car the way that ran.
I was watching Nick Hamann in the States at Lime Rock Park a couple of weeks ago, and then again at the weekend at Road America.
He had a brilliant race
at Lime Rock. At Lime Rock, he'd never sat in the car or driven the track, and he qualified the car better than his teammate. He raced better than his teammate. He was right at the sharp end of the field all the time, and he's just replicated that again at the weekend. So we're not talking about making any excuses for these guys when they go into professional championships like the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge. These guys are performing right at the sharp end of the field. Yeah,
and we talk about Ordonez and Mardenborough and Wolfie and whatever, but as you say, I think someone worked out we've got 12 drivers racing in different championships around the world. It's tough to keep up with them, and again, everything from Micro Cup to Z's racing in Nissan in America, through to Blancpain. Wolfie's off to Japan for GT300 for the race in 2 weeks' time. So we're racing all over the world with GT Academy. It looks like, John, that there is some movement on the grid.
There is indeed. Johnny Palmer is down at Beggett's, and you're watching NISMO TV. We're about to go for our final. My thanks to Darren Cox, and thank you for the notes coming in. Darren, actually, before you go, you've got to wave at the camera because everybody is saying, please get Darren to wave at the camera. There you go. That's for everybody there. Johnny Palmer. Yes. Bernard Cotterill sitting there. Johnny Palmer will remind us of the grid as they roll forward from the start onto the starting line. Johnny.
Well, yes, we kind of don't take any notice of the times, although they may well give us a real insight into how the race will unfold. But as John mentioned a little earlier on, the day yesterday decided the grid for today's 8-lap race around the national circuit of Silverstone. So in pole position from grid spot number 1 will start Australian Matthew Simmons in the yellow liveried number 5 car. He'll start from the inside of the front row, and alongside him the number 7 car from grid slot number 2 of Ryan Lynch, the American. So that's the red liveried Nissan. In third position will start the orange car, number 6 of Hussein Daghli, the Turkish driver. Next up, the quiet man of the field, Ali Sami, who was really quick in the early part of the qualifying session, but then dropped away very slightly. But he'll start from 4th, and we wonder whether that is an illustrative position for him to start, or whether that's a little bit of a false place maybe, and he could be one to watch, maybe working his way through the order. And at the back of the field, it is Juan C. Cubed, as John Heinef calls him. Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez starts from 5th position in the green-coloured number 1 car.
And they are on their green flag lap at the moment. Their final chance to check the gauges, make sure everything's okay. All of the mentors are filing in front of me to race control. They're sitting there. There's nothing more that they can do. Their chargers now are out on the circuit for 8 laps, and they are on their own. It's up to them, just them, nobody else, and it's all in their head. And with them now, as they come round to a standing start, it is a clutch start then on the national circuit here at Silverstone for the final race of the international version of the Nissan GT Academy 2015. Never seen so many people in race control as we have now. Bernard Cotterill is having to officiate. There's cameras, there's all kinds of things going on in there. There must be 15 people or so. Just turn that round so we can see the scrum of people as they wait for the cars to come. Everybody gone past you all right, Johnny?
Yes, all safely through, I'm pleased to say, and back towards the complex section. Again, different approaches being taken from all 5 drivers really on the warm-up lap, and it's important again to get temperatures up to, not race temperature, it's tough to do that on the opening lap, but at least get a little bit of heat into those tyres.
So the Australian Matt Simmons, Simo, down in the Australian yellow number 5 car to pole position, which is on driver's left, pulls up into his grid slot. Alongside him, slightly behind him to his right-hand side, the man who Wolfgang Reep has been mentoring in car number 7, the red one of Ryan Smith from the USA. In third, then the orange of Hussein Daghli. 4th, the quiet man as we've been calling him, Ali Sami. Very quick driver indeed. Seems to have his head and his focus in the right place, from Egypt, representing North Africa. And the fiery Mexican at the back in the green number 1 is Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez. And they are off and running for their race. It's a 10-lap event. They've just been added a couple on. 10-lap event then, down towards the first corner. They've all got through it, and they're in the sight of Johnny Palmer and Beckett.
And Ryan Lynch has made quick work of Matthew Simmons. Great outbraking manoeuvre, but he's overcooked it, and he's all over the grass, and Ryan Lynch very nearly spins. He's got a tank slapper on, and Ryan Lynch right at the back of the order. So Hussein Daghli has picked up the pieces there, because both Matthew Simmons and Ryan Lynch go wide at Beckett, and the orange number 6 car leads it down the Wellington Straight for the first time.
So it's Turkey leading then, the orange number 6 of Hussein Daghli, after the first 2 overcooked it in front of Johnny that time around. Watch for the progress of the number 4, the blue, or the 4th place car rather, started from 4th, the number 2, the blue car of Ali Sami, because that's given him an advantage as well as they come round towards the end of the first lap. They're in the complex now, and this is an absolute disaster for Ryan Lynch and Matty Simmons. It was a good start by Lynch, got to the lead, and as they come through this time, it's Turkey from Australia recovering into second, and then North Africa, Ali Sami in third position, Mexico and the USA dropped down into fourth position, and they're close enough still to have a few battles as Johnny Palmer can see them again.
Yeah, here they come then to Maggots and Beckett's for the first time, and Hussein Dagli, as we know, a little bit inconsistent, but may well like the movement of these Nissan 370Zs. Second position, the Australian Matthew Simmons. Third place is Ali Sami, and then fourth position is the Mexican Juan Chavez, and then comes Ryan Lynch, several seconds down, having to do the recovery drive, but this is only a very short race, of course, so not a lot of time to try and recover those spots and maybe get a podium.
Fastest first sector, though, by Ryan Lynch in the USA car at the back of the field of 40.771. He is potentially the fastest man out there if the qualifying session earlier is anything to go by, but my goodness, he's got something in the region of 3 seconds to the front of the field, and of course 4 cars to pass to get back into that lead position that he snatched early on. End of lap number 2 now as they go through. It's Turkey, Australia, North Africa, Mexico and USA, and between first and second just on half a second, then 4/10, no, it's a full second from Australia back to North Africa. So Ali Sami hasn't been able to close in on the leaders. A 107.7 by the leader Hussein Dagli that time around.
Good lap from the number 6, then the orange car, but this is a slightly better exit, I'd say, for Matthew Simmons as they work their way onto the Wellington Straight. Definitely a gap appearing between the second place car, number 5, and the third placed car, which is number 2, Ali Sami. So Sami more concerned perhaps with Juan Chavez in the mirrors, and Ryan Lynch is trying to reel those 2 cars in also.
Oh, and exclamation there from everyone in front of us in the race control areas. That one of the drivers got very sideways indeed, and side by side now as they come through to the end of what is going to be lap number 3. 107.7, the best time out there, but Australia have got the best split time at the moment in that first sector, and it's Australia who've gone through in the lead. That was good enough for Matthew Simmons to recover all the way to the lead. Fantastic piece of driving. Slight sideways manoeuvre by Hussein Dagli there has seen him drop down into second position, and it'll be Australia and the yellow number 5 car that Johnny Palmer sees first this time around.
Yep, yellow from orange, and then maybe Ali Sami stretching his legs a touch on Juan Chavez, but Chavez closes up, under braking for Maggots and Beckett. Dust kicked up, in fact, from the Egyptian, and the Mexican driver may have an opportunity to get even to Ryan Lynch, watching it all unfold in front of him, but unfortunately he's several arms lengths, and he'd love to be much closer to the battle. The lead as close as it's ever been, I'd say, with Aussie Matthew Simmons.
Oh, and once again, action down into the braking area at the end of the Wellington Straight, and who's going to come out the best of that as they come back onto the start-finish line. It's very close indeed, you know, Johnny. The top 4 pretty much together, with at the back still Ryan Lynch trying to get back on terms, but he's not. He's done a 107.9 last time around, but it's not quick enough. He's not gaining, and now he's over 4 seconds behind the leader as Turkey's back in the lead as they go past me this time, and it's a 107.7 against a 106.2. That's the best times, but they were both down in the 108s. They're scrapping, and they're being caught now by North Africa, by Ali Sami in third place.
Thought about him drawing alongside as they made the run up, and they changed the third position as Chavez. His legs on the break. Side of Ali Sami as he overcooked the exit though. Sami goes tighter as they go onto the Wellington Straight. There's almost an overlap, but not quite. And Juan Chavez has timed that brilliantly well up the inside. A classic Beckett's manoeuvre really to give him third position. The leaders still nose to tail.
Turkey, Australia, and now Mexico in third position, ahead of Egypt representing North Africa, and then the USA trailing along, and Ryan Lynch will be kicking himself. Snatched the lead in the first part of lap 1, but overcooked it down into Beckett's and has paid the price. Now nearly 5 seconds behind the leaders as we wait for them to come back across the line. Here they come now, and it is the end of lap number 5, and Australia have snaked it back into the lead from Turkey. Now Mexico in third place, 0.3 of a second, and then 2.5 seconds now back to third place. Johnny Palmer.
So here they come into my sight. That's Simmons versus Dagli, and you can't really tell the gap between them. Now as they get to broadside, it's about 2 car lengths between Matthew Simmons and Hussein Dagli, but it's much less as they break, and only half a car's length really between the top 2 as Dagli cuts the corner a touch, kicks up dust. I don't think he crossed the line too much though, and therefore gets a slightly better exit onto the Wellington straight. You see that the 4th and 5th place cars drifting away very slightly away from Chavez. They are, but Ryan Lynch is lining up Ali Sami here, so this is the run from the American maybe to get back into the meaty part of the race. Ali Sami his first target.
And it looks like the USA has gone by Ali Sami there as they were breaking down at the end of the straight, and Turkey's back in the lead again as well as they come round to complete lap number 6 of 10. Oh, this is by far one of the best races we've seen here, certainly in terms of the battle for the lead. Every lap it's changed at least once. It's the 2015 Nissan GT Academy International final race. We're over half distance now, and 0.8 of a second. Australia made a mistake that time around. Matt Simmons, having wrested back the lead, has made a mistake, but he's still in clear air. Mexico now 3rd, and North Africa and the USA battling out for 4th and 5th.
Yeah, if Ryan Lynch didn't make the pass on Ali Sami, it's reverted back to the... Oh, and Ryan Lynch goes straight on down the escape road. If we were on the Grand Prix circuit today, but sadly we're not, and Ryan Lynch continues straight on. Is that an issue with the car? He's going to get it rotated and pointed back towards the national circuit, but that might mean the end of Ryan Lynch, I'm afraid. Ali Sami with no longer any pressure on his shoulders, and Hussein Daghli enjoying the biggest lead he's had all race.
Well, he's turned the car around. He's with the rescue vehicles now, and he's coming rather tentatively back onto the circuit, Johnny, but I think that's it in terms of getting a result for Ryan Lynch, the fastest man in the qualifying session earlier on, and Ali Sami, the second fastest man, down in 4th position. It's Turkey, Australia, Mexico and North Africa as they go through this time, a 1:08.1 from the leader. Fastest man on the circuit is still the Australian Matt Simmons. I think he's got an issue there. He's dropping back. He's just done a 1:10.1. His best lap's a 1:7.6, so that's not representative. And North Africa are 1:11.2 as well that time around. So has Ali Sami got an issue? The two leaders separated by a couple of seconds. And would you believe it, Johnny? It looks very much to me as though Hussein Daghli is cruising to victory here.
Looks the way of things, but what a run for Juan Chavez, who, remember, started in 5th position. He's now up to 2nd place. I think that might be a bit too much to ask for. 2.6 seconds to draw in race leader for Turkey, Hussein Daghli in the orange number 6. But Juan Chavez pulling the move on Matthew Simmons there. The Aussie's down to 3rd. Although quickest man out on track at the moment.
We're on lap number 8 of 10, so 2 to go at the end of this one, as the Turkish driver, who's been mentored by Miguel Vesca, is still leading. It's the 6 car with the orange, Hussein Daghli. Now it's about consistency at the head of the field. Last time around, a 1:08.5, that's good. 1:08.1 for Mexico. He's closed down a wee bit, but not enough. The laps are running out, I'm afraid, for Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez. I don't think he's going to get back to the leader, Johnny.
No, but he is edging away from Matthew Simmons, so no real pressure from behind. He can concentrate on the man in front, but doesn't want to push it too hard. Of course, this is a great race for him. And
USA's coming to the pits, Johnny. The USA in the pits.
Yeah, I did wonder that because Ryan Lynch was in no hurry to rejoin. He had outbraked himself up at Beckett's, but then could have turned right a little sooner than he did, almost as if he was listening out for any bumps or bangs, or maybe as a result of the rather kind of errant way that he ran through Beckett's on the first lap and got that fishtail that he just about managed to control, but that ruined his race from the start. Hussein Daghli, though, the real star, but Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez will earn himself a lot of points just because of the racecraft involved.
Yes, I agree. He's the fiery man, isn't he? As described to us by the mentors this week. Starting the last lap then, through goes Hussein Daghli for Turkey, and the gap back to second is constant at 2.5 seconds. He's holding that really nicely. Then another 1.4 seconds further back in 3rd place is Matt Simmons, the man who started from pole position. He'll be kicking himself. He's got the fastest lap, but a 1:10.1 last time around. He's in trouble. He's not got the pace in that car. I think he's going to hold on to 3rd though.
Yeah, Ali Sami is in 4th position, but in no danger at the moment of worrying the Australian in the number 5 car, Matthew Simmons. Simmons now heading out of Beckett's then for this 10th time and heading down towards the left-hander at Brooklands. But it's Turkey who leads from Mexico, from Australia. Hussein Daghli, a exemplary drive to the win, it looks like.
Listen, there's no asterisks in motor racing. He had to be there, took advantage of the schmozzle that went on ahead of him. The guys in race control are going absolutely bananas, and of course Miguel Faisca is urging his charge home to take the checkered flag, which he does. There's a round of applause in front of me, and it is Hussein Daghli at lap 10 who takes it with a 2.5 second gap and another 1:08.5. That's mega consistent. Mexico in second place in the shape of Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez in the number 1 car. Well, he lapped within half a second of his best time for each of those 10 laps, and that will catch the judge's eye. Very impressive consistency coming from the back of the grid to second. Third place, and perhaps disappointment, much disappointment I would think, for Matthew Simmons, who'd started from pole position in the number 5 car, had a great scrap early on for the lead, had the fastest lap with a 1:07.6 in 4th position for Egypt and North Africa. Ali Sami looked like he was going to be some part of that race at the front of the field early on, but then a couple of slow laps, and at the end there a 1:10.6, and well off the pace of his fastest, a 1:08 flat. But surely the biggest disappointment for us, and indeed himself, Ryan Lynch, Captain America in the 7 red car, mentored by Wolfgang Reip, who took the lead early on, then had problems, further problems later on, outbreaking himself in front of Johnny Palmer. And really, that's not, Johnny, the way that he wanted to finish this 2015 Nissan GT Academy, the international sector of it.
Unfortunately, Ryan, I think, tried to win the race on the opening lap, and I mean, that's always the mistake I fall into on the sims. You overtake everyone and then forget to brake for the first corner, and he went not quite straight on as he did later on in the race, but ran out onto the grass and was lucky that the car didn't entirely rotate on him, because that grass not offering any grip at all, and the car just swung from left to right to left to right. He got it controlled and rejoined, but significantly way down. Then started to catch Ali Sami, in fairness, and could well have finished on the podium, but whether that was an issue with the car or again outbraking himself at Beckett's, but going straight on down the Grand Prix circuit effectively, and that was race over, sadly.
The drivers that are going to catch the judge's eye, undoubtedly at the sharp end of the field, obviously the man who won the race, had the second quickest lap of the race, being Hussein Daghli, took his opportunities very well, drove very, very consistently. But I think you've also got to look at Juan Carlos Carmona Chavez. I mentioned his consistency, and you mentioned it in the commentary. He was pretty impressive picking his way through the field.
Yeah, absolutely, because he kept himself out of trouble. You need to be able to read the situation ahead of you and think, okay, that guy might be going off, let's go the other way. You know, almost drive to the scene of accidents to make sure that they're not going to be there by the time you're there. And a lot of the time it's not grabbing the headlines, but keeping out of trouble, stealth-like. He made his way up to second position, but then maintained it with some good lap times, some consistent lap times. I'm intrigued by these times of 1:07.5, 1:07.7. Where was that in qualifying?
Yes, exactly.
You know, nobody beyond one car could get below a 1:08. That just shows again how much these guys are learning. But I mean, Matthew
adrenaline
Simmons,
as well.
True,
Adrenaline, the drug you can't buy, as Danny Sullivan once famously said. Slight sucker for Matthew Simmons in that he got the fastest lap of the race on a 1:07.6, but it's a case of what might have been for the Australian.
Yeah, well, again, you know, it took a little bit of time to get up to speed, possibly through the qualifying section of the day, and maybe that played on his mind a touch. You start from pole position, but then, of course, he was overtaken on the opening lap by then Ryan Lynch, who exited stage left. Matthew Simmons kind of didn't get through Beckett's as he would have wished, because I think he was trying to avoid Ryan Lynch's incident, you know, and that allowed Hussein Daghli to slip up the inside of the two of them and take the lead, which he did relinquish at one point, but then got it back again. Yeah, Matthew Simmons has flattered to deceive a little bit through this competition. However, he did get the fastest lap of everybody, so there's points for that.
A slight disappointment, I would have thought, for Ali Sami, who looked good early on, and 1:08.0 his fastest lap, and clearly at the end he was lapping a couple of seconds off that. Not sure how the judges will say that. I'm pleased we don't have to make this decision, Johnny, because this is going to be a tough one.
A lot of variables to think about, aren't there? Yeah, Ali Sami, a little bit of a shrinking violet, you could say, during the race. Very good in qualifying, good in the early stage of the race, but then fell away a touch. But you get the sense that he might have more to give, and again, he's learned through that race. but it is, you know, at the end of this, decision time, isn't it? And there can only be one winner.
Johnny, thanks very much indeed. Johnny Palmer out at Beckett's. If you make sure you are watching the social media, we'll have the results for you later on today, and we'll find out who has come away with the title of Nissan GT Academy winner for 2015 in the international section. From Johnny Palmer and myself, John Hindle, thanks for tuning in to Nismo TV, and we will have more coverage of next week's competition, which is Asia as well. Make sure you follow us along on YouTube and see when that is coming on. Johnny will be back with you with Nick Damon next week to take you through the action. But from everyone here at Silverstone and from Nismo TV, it's bye for now.